What's up, guys? You're listening to the SplashTag Podcast. I'm Matt, and today, for the first time, I have a guest not named Joe. I'm joined today by my buddy, good friend, Nathan. And the reason I'm joined by Nathan and not Joe today is because today, for the first time in SplashTag Podcast history, we're going to be talking about something other than basketball. And so I haven't really shared this too much, but as Nathan will probably kind of allude to later on, I've been a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe since. I've really enjoyed the movies, but I think I became a very knowledgeable kind of like an incredibly invested fan while I was in high school. And so with Avengers Endgame coming out, this is being recorded April 24th, so it's coming out technically in 2 days, but Nathan actually is going to see it tomorrow, so we wanted to just kind of chat about, things we expect, things we're anticipating, things we've heard, kind of looking back a little bit on previous installments in the MCU that have been building to this, and so this will be a very much an MCU and Avengers Endgame centered episode. So without further ado, I'm joined by Nathan. How you doing, buddy?
Great to be here, Matt. Great to be talking to your listeners here. Been a big fan of SplashTag. Me and you go way back.
Thanks, dude.
Me and you go way back. So I felt like really honored that you'd asked me to be your guest here on this very special episode of the podcast.
Yeah. So I know I'm glad to have you. I feel like you're one of the people where I can just absolutely just nerd out about Marvel and whatnot,
and I can do the same as well.
And you don't judge me. I think that's what's important.
That's the important.
I have friends who, to me, my litmus test for my real friends are the ones who don't judge me.
Exactly.
Like you don't need to know everything, but if you don't judge me, we homies.
Exactly.
I feel like that's the litmus.
Exactly.
test.
It's very mutual. No judgment.
So speaking of judgment, critics have actually recently seen.
They have.
A lot of the top critics have recently seen, gone to their premieres and screenings of Avengers Endgame, and right now, it's currently sitting at a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes with about 200 reviews. I guess to throw a question at you, like, what are just some of the kind of broader themes and kind of consistent reactions that you've seen? And is that changing your expectation, or do you think nothing can really change your expectation for when you walk into the theater?
Yeah, I mean, going into this, you got to think it's the culmination of 11 years?
11 years, 22nd movie in the
22 movies, 11 years. It's a culmination of like what the Marvel Cinematic Universe has really built up over this last decade.
Yeah.
And I think importantly, what's amazing about that is that for people our age, like people in college, stuff like that, we're like 20, 21 years old. That's like half of our life,
Yeah.
And that's really like impacted like my childhood growing up. Like we literally grew up with these phase of films, and it's been like a huge cultural impact on our society and really on our lives. We grew up watching Iron Man, watching Captain America, Thor, the Hulk, all those amazing superheroes get their origin stories. And I remember back in the first Avengers came out, 2012?
2012, yeah.
Yeah, 2012 when the first Avengers came out, that was only just a handful of superheroes. The OG 6.
Only, quote unquote, only 6.
Right, the OG 6.
We're so spoiled now.
Exactly.
I feel like kids who started watching these, let's say like kids like maybe like my younger brother's age, so maybe in like that teenage or young teens.
Yeah.
I feel like they're really spoiled in that like they're 10, 12, 13, and they're already seeing Infinity War.
Exactly. They were born
in
this era.
Literally, yeah.
So I think that's just amazing, and like just the universe that they've built up. I think it's just an amazing translation of the comic book world, taking what's been on the pages and really putting it on the big screen. And so to me, I think this movie is more than just seeing how the Avengers are gonna deal with Thanos. It's a conclusion to an epic saga.
The way, to kind of add on to that, from what I've seen from a lot of critics is that they've said that it truly, there is a sense of finality and like kind of closure for a lot of arcs, and that they accomplished that in this movie with a lot of surprising choices and a lot of moments that will please people who have been invested in the ride.
Exactly.
Which makes me really excited because I've been incredibly invested
I know.
in this ride.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
And I think on top of that, a lot of the reviews that I've seen coming in, watching a lot of the YouTube videos, reading a lot of the reviews coming in over the past like couple hours, A lot of them have used the word satisfying to describe it. You know, it was a very satisfying conclusion to this epic that we've been presented with by Kevin Feige in the MCU.
Yeah.
And so I think to me, like, hearing them describe it that way is great, because a lot of them said that they got super emotional, and I don't know if I'm gonna get like super emotional watching this. I feel like I will.
I feel like I will. I've
yeah,
never cried.
I feel like you will.
I've never cried in a movie, but maybe I will.
I feel like
maybe I will on Saturday.
But yeah, I mean, I think just hearing a lot of the critics say that it's satisfying, and on top of that, a lot of them said that the movie does a great job of doing fan service as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with like an over 3-hour runtime.
Yeah.
You know, some of them did say it was a touch slow, but I feel like the slow parts are just incredibly necessary to get those moments in there.
Yeah.
But a lot of people said the last act of the movie.
I've heard the last hour is
insane.
I've heard basically people say it's undescribable.
Yeah.
It's what you. Yeah. So
I'm looking forward to that.
I don't know what it's gonna be. Obviously, I anticipate there being a lot of action, but
oh, for sure.
Beyond that, I don't know what to expect out of the last hour. And what I think, I obviously had a lot of faith, and I basically had like a blind allegiance and faith that this movie would deliver. But what makes me really think that I will be satisfied, surprised, and you know, all the you name all the best adjectives out there, is that the first being that investment, and that we have been building to this, and the way Infinity War ended makes me obviously want to see, you know, okay, you know, how is this story coming to a close? Also, the fact that they've been incredibly vague and kind of maybe even misleading to an extent with the marketing.
Yeah.
Like, how much of the trailers really given away?
I know.
If you think about it. And like, how much of that do you think is like fake footage?
Exactly. I mean, I think a decent amount of that's got to be fake footage, and you know, they said a lot of that trailer footage was coming from early parts of the movie, and you know, they did recycle a decent amount of the trailer footage in all of those trailers that they released. You know, we saw a lot of the same ones where they're walking up in their epic new red and white suits.
Yeah.
I mean, that one gave me chills when I saw that. That was really cool to see. But yeah, I mean, I think overall, like, they've done a good job though of balancing. I heard a lot of critics say that like hype is something that can kill a film of this like magnitude.
Yeah. And
they said that, you know, it really does live up to its hype and exceeds expectations, which is just like pleasing to an MCU fan like ourselves.
Yeah. I've heard from some that I don't think it's any surprise. The Russos last year after Infinity War, they said the reason Cap had a little more of a, not a true backseat, but he didn't have as significant of a role in Infinity War.
He didn't speak a lot of lines, but his actions were important.
He was more so there to lead and kick ass and unite people. But they said that
shield.
But they said, the Russos said that the reason that he had that arc in Infinity War was because Avengers 4, they said, could almost be considered his story.
Yeah.
Almost considered his story. And from what I'm hearing, and kind of my hunch is that this is a story obviously more so focused on the Avengers this time rather than Thanos. Yeah. Whereas Infinity War I felt like was more of Thanos' movie. Yeah. But this time I think the emotional crux will be Tony and Cap.
Exactly.
And I've actually heard some people say that two people, one of them being a little bit of a surprise and one of them not being, that were really, really good, were actually Nebula and Hawkeye.
Yeah.
I've heard Nebula was very surprisingly good.
Yeah.
And as in terms of just the performance she gave and kind of the stuff they had in store for her. And as we know, like they Hawkeye sat out in Infinity War, and you know, he's got a new look and everything. So it doesn't surprise me that Hawkeye's got a lot of cool stuff to do this time around. But
you're a big Hawkeye guy, I know that.
I'm a big Hawkeye guy for sure. But I'm definitely looking forward. I do think the emotional crux, like as in the emotional investment that the audience is going to have, is going to be built up because of Steve and Tony. That's my. I
mean, they are the two father figures of this MCU universe that we built up, this Marvel Cinematic Universe. And you know, touching on your point about Nebula, I did see a couple of reviews say that it was surprising for them to see her transition into a kind of a role where it's a lot more meaningful. You know, she was introduced to us as a villain when we first saw her.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that's another thing that Marvel does a great job of doing, especially with their character arcs. You know, they did it with Loki when we saw him die. Now, whether or not he's actually dead, I think there's a good possibility that he might be truly dead after Infinity War. I know there's theories floating around out there that he's not, but We've discussed this, and
Yeah.
I know we felt that like Loki probably was dead. But even with a character like him, how they turned him from being the main badass in the original Avengers movie to him almost become of like a lovable character.
Yeah.
By the time he dies in Infinity War, you're like
Yeah.
shocked by it. Now I think they can do something really similar with Nebula, especially
Really?
given her connection with Thanos.
Yeah.
That's just my speculation.
I think that Nebula probably has the inside scoop on Thanos' weaknesses.
Yeah, I mean,
Is
we're
what I was
told
thinking.
in Infinity War that he almost killed her.
She almost killed him.
So, I mean, this might be a hot take. I mean, I'd love to see Tony and Cap together give Thanos the final blow if that's how it's going to end. But, you know, I think a real sleeper pick to be the
Nebula.
Thanos killer.
Actually,
is
in the
Nebula.
comics, Nebula holds the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Nebula takes the gauntlet
That
with
is
all the
true.
stones. But, so we talked a little bit about Nebula. I want to talk a little bit about. I guess what we want to. I guess I want to transition to talk a little bit more about just kind of like what we're expecting, what we're most excited for, specifically with whether it's characters, their arcs, storylines, just pairings, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So what's one pairing that you think that you're kind of most excited to kind of see on screen?
I'm so hyped. I mean, we've seen this pairing before, obviously, but Iron Man and Captain America
you think
back together
after
again.
Civil War? I was gonna say that another sleeper pick. I would say I can't wait to see the comedic duo or kind of the comedic, manpower between Rocket and Ant-Man.
That's exactly what I was going to say, too.
Yeah.
We got two comedic geniuses there. They're both big personalities, but small characters.
Yeah.
I mean, physically small characters, big characters in terms of what they can do for the plot and what they do for their respective teams. But, small guys, relatively speaking, with huge personalities. And I think that'll be a really cool interaction.
I think Paul Rudd. I think it's like so impossible to hate Paul Rudd.
I know. He's a great
You know
guy.
whoever wrote that mean tweet. Anyways, I actually think what's crazy is when I kind of think about who do I think is going to be a major player? Who do I think is going to be an X factor and whatnot? I think of all these characters, and when I list them out, I actually kind of think that Thor might have a little bit of a backseat role, which is crazy because he literally has Stormbreaker, which was one of the best, if not the best moments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That was incredible, wasn't it?
When he arrives in Wakanda in Infinity War. So, I don't know.
Bring me Thanos!
I don't know. Is Thor going to take a backseat? Is Banner, is the Hulk coming out? There's a lot we don't know. There's a lot we don't know.
Yeah.
I've heard that Captain Marvel has a pretty small role.
Really?
That's what I heard.
I mean, to me, I think I've seen a couple interviews. I know we discussed a little bit before, but I feel like because they do have to transition this into a new phase and a new, I guess, generation of characters. Now, I still have no clue how they're going to handle, the passing of the baton from the OGs to these new up and coming superheroes. But I have read somewhere that Captain Marvel is kind of taking the head charge, similar to how Tony / Robert Downey Jr. was kind of spearheading that original first three phase of the MCU.
I'm actually. This is just maybe a little bit of a hot take. I'm not sure if there's going to be movies timeline-wise after Endgame.
Yeah, really.
I wonder if maybe the movies they make going forward are stories or movies that are set before Infinity War, before the events of Infinity War.
Okay.
Because
I mean, there's a Black Widow prequel coming out? They're doing
these prequel type of movies.
They're working on a Hawkeye series.
They're working on a lot of television series.
You gotta think that's gotta be Hawkeye in his actual SHIELD days, right? I mean,
potentially, or maybe
between Infinity War and Endgame.
Maybe what he was doing in Infinity War. I don't know. I've read a lot of
Hawkeye to Ronin
reports.
transition. Will we see that up and come?
That's definitely a possibility. The reason I say that is because, and Kevin Feige is a smart guy when it comes to film. He's a smart guy, period. But he's a genius when it comes to filmmaking. He knows more than anybody. You're not. The longer you continue the series, eventually at some point there's going to be something that
gets too drawn out.
That maybe it's drawn out. And even if the movie's in 10 years, let's say they keep making these films set in this universe, in 15 years, even if these movies are still quality, at some point they're going to face A, the fatigue, and B, this unfair kind of comparison where people are going to say, but it wasn't the movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the golden days.
You're right.
once you lose pivotal characters and whatnot, and you transition to new characters, there's always going to be, a faction that will say like, oh, but like this was the golden era.
I agree.
I feel like we're in that golden era right now.
That's
and I think
true.
Kevin Feige knows better than anybody else that sometimes, at least in terms of like how the storytelling actually works, like from a timeline standpoint, I think he more than anyone knows that sometimes you got to end. Sometimes like he knows all good things have to come to an end. And he might say like, Endgame is it in terms of the timeline.
That's true.
And that would give them a chance to maybe tell a couple kind of prequel stories, right? Yeah. Spider-Man's obviously got, we don't really know the details of like when
wasn't it confirmed that it is after Endgame?
I
read that somewhere.
I've seen different stuff.
Okay.
But the point being, Spider-Man's also not even owned by Marvel. It's still owned by Sony.
That's very true.
Right? And so like you can tell a Black Panther movie that's set before Infinity War.
That's very true.
You know what I mean? So I don't know if this will happen, but I would be curious to see if that maybe is the direction they go.
Yeah.
Because they just got these new properties from Fox. How weird would it be if, some kind of original characters leave the franchise and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, and now there's mutants. It'd be like, definitely would be quite a jump to take. Whereas if you stop it here and then maybe you kind of I don't know. I really have no idea.
Not a reboot, but like maybe kind of like explore different paths.
You explore different stories and on a more intimate level rather than this grand scale.
I see that.
In other words, I don't think there's going to be an Avengers 5.
True. I mean, the thing is that they could always switch up the teams and stuff like that. I mean, I think I definitely agree with you. Like going with a more intimate path would be like a great way to really touch base with like some of these characters that we didn't get a chance to explore too much.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that weren't the focus in phases 1 through 3.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see like where they want to take this, because although I do agree with you that going with the prequel path could be cool, you got to think though that like given that they've done such huge films like Infinity War, and obviously all the critics are saying that Endgame is a huge culmination, a masterpiece, like large scale film, to go down to smaller scale films, following that.
Or TV/TV series.
Or TV series too, and they do have the streaming service coming out, so they might want to capitalize on that. But to kind of go on like a smaller scale, it might be tough because like people will always like compare it to like the big action pieces.
That's true.
Of
I just wonder,
Avengers films.
You've built it. Okay, the reason I say I don't think there's going to be an Avengers 5, and maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I agree with you in the sense that there will not.
How
be
can
an
you
Avengers
build
5.
up to something bigger than this if characters leave?
Yeah.
I mean, if arcs conclude, a lot of stuff's going to be changed up.
Well, they change up the teams in the comics all the time.
Right, but what I'm saying is, how can you ever build something to this level of excitement, anticipation, emotional investment? So that's why I don't.
It's a challenge.
And hey, they're better at this than I am, but like I don't see how they're going to build to an Avengers 5.
Yeah.
This really does feel
we're gonna have to see Endgame to find out, but touching back on the point of like the golden age that you brought up, I think that was a really good point. I think Marvel, what they've done such a good job of is that they've expanded their universe to 22 films in 11 years, yet it still doesn't feel drawn out. We still want more.
Yeah.
But with other film series, like me, I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, and even with Star Wars, like, to expand a film series to the original trilogy, that's just 3 films. Mm-hmm. That's still a long time to expand a set of films and create a universe. And now I fully agree with your point where they probably recognize that they are in their golden moment, their golden hour. Yeah. And you don't want to risk something happening like Star Wars where George Lucas comes back and he makes those prequels. And now to me, really hot take, I'm a huge fan of the prequels just because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. But obviously the prequels got a lot of they got a lot of backlash. And even this new trilogy that we've seen from J.J. Abrams, a lot of people weren't liking on the what they did with The Last Jedi. So, there's always that risk that if you want to extend a film universe or like draw something out more, there's going to be backlash.
I guess one parallel analogy I can have is if you're an athlete and you're in the peak of your career,
you want to go out on top.
Do you want to go out on top, or do you want? Or it's very easy to stay on a couple years, to stick around a couple years too long, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's just my thought. Like for instance, Michael Jordan hits the shot in 1998 to win the NBA Finals, his 6th championship, and he retires from the Bulls. If he stops right there, like he ends out on top. But he came back for 2 years. Basically, he came back for 2 years and played with the Wizards, and no one really remembers that. And he was they were fine. Those years on the Wizards were fine, but they weren't memorable, is what I'm saying. I feel like that could be a trap they definitely fall into.
True.
Is what I'm thinking.
I agree.
But I really think that I actually said this in 2015 or 16. So this is when we were seniors in high school. Yeah. I said this to multiple people. Probably said it to you at one point. I actually said, and not just about Marvel, but I said I think we're probably in the golden age of comic book films.
I agree with you, yeah.
Because I think at some point there's going to be a saturation and kind of like an exhaust. But I also looked at the upcoming slate of stuff and I was like, wait, we already have, at least specifically for Marvel, at that point, we had already had 2 phases and we were waiting on phase 3.
God, it seems like a long time
ago. It feels like so long ago, but it was only like 3-4 years ago. And then I was like, but they've built these characters up so that we care, and now they're doing all this cool stuff in Phase 3. And I remember at that moment, I was thinking like, wow, like Civil War, I don't know how anything in my life is going to top that. And then like literally 2 years later, I see Infinity War. And I love those. I think both movies are very different. I think they're both really good. And then a year after Infinity War, here we are. But I just don't know if there's that next step of like, holy shit, remember when we thought Endgame was the thing, and now we're at point Z?
I know.
Like, I just wonder if we'll ever actually get there. But
yeah. And they are also in a tough spot given like their new acquisitions. Like, like obviously like the X-Men films, that's a big question mark on what they're gonna do with that new property. And just because the X-Men films were already so established, it might be difficult to weave them in like in a new and creative way, because like when we saw Iron Man, for example, Iron Man was always a popular character, but he wasn't nearly as popular as something like that DC had done with Batman, Superman, when they made those films. But I think the beauty of Iron Man was that like they took a character that was not a household name and literally made him a household name. Yeah. And obviously they're not going to be able to do that with X-Men, because
everyone associates Wolverine with Hugh.
Exactly.
Hugh
People
Jackman.
Also already know about the timeline mess that Days of Future Past did. Yeah. And that's a whole different debate. But yeah, we'll have it's gonna be interesting to see where they can go with this.
Yeah. One thing I this is more just like a kind of a random story, but I had always kind of watched the Marvel films, but I never kind of pieced together how kind of hard it was to have, a shared universe and whatnot. Yeah. Basically, what I'm saying is, I think in like 2014, so before junior year of high school, I saw Winter Soldier. And that was the film that made me think like, holy shit, like each of these Marvel installments is like, each one of them is like hella solid.
Yeah.
Right? And Winter Soldier was really good. And then it wasn't until 2015 when I saw the teaser for Civil War where I was like, holy shit. Like
it's about to get real.
Yeah. And I say that, and then I guess what's the common thread between Civil War and Winter Soldier, Infinity War and Endgame? It's the directors.
True.
The Russo brothers.
And
what I like about them, and the reason why I have a blind faith in this film, is that they, as directors, they know what the tropes are. They avoid those tropes.
They do.
They try to make the conflict something that is like actually seems like, believable and interesting and something we haven't really seen before. Winter Soldier is like a 70s spy thriller, but set in the age of today's technology and surveillance and privacy.
Yeah.
Civil War pits Tony and Cap. Infinity War is told from Thanos' perspective.
You literally make the bad guy almost feel like the hero.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing thing to do.
I have a blind faith that the Russos know what they're doing, and in every single one of their films, they've tried to do something totally kind of game-changing and shocking. Winter Soldier, S.H.I.E.L.D. is taken by Hydra and it collapses. Civil War, the Avengers split apart. Infinity War, the snap. So I'm really curious to see what their big kind of game changer. Yeah. Obviously, they're going to do something game changing because they have to conclude a lot of storytelling. But I'm really curious to see what that big holy shit. Like that, they just did that. There is going
to be that moment.
They just did that moment.
Touching back to some of the reviews that came out with the early screenings, like a common thread and a common thing that a lot of these reviews were talking about was the fact that there were things that people were expecting to happen in the movie, that theories were floating around, predictions were going around. We do see some of those things, but we see them in a way that is very satisfying, and it's almost like a great piece of fan service.
Okay.
Which I think is a huge credit to what the Russo brothers do. They throw in the fan service in there. They give you what you want, but it's not predictable. Yeah. We all know. And just like these reviews have said, we all know there's going to be that moment, that snap moment, that Avengers are splitting apart moment, or like that moment at the end of Civil War.
Civil War.
Oh, also Winter Soldier. But at the end of Civil War, when you think that they're fighting one bad guy, but next thing you know,
that was
the fight turns to Bucky and Steve against Tony.
Yep.
But that moment's gonna happen in Endgame, and kind of a lot of what these reviewers were saying was that it's unexpected, yet it's a great feeling at the same time because it was a beautiful send off.
That's what I like.
For these characters.
Yeah.
And that's all you can hope for.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm needless to say, like, that subversion of expectation, or just kind of walking in not knowing what to expect, but knowing that I'm going to be satisfied.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to achieve that.
I mean, a 97 on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's really hard to achieve that.
I mean, Infinity War is an amazing film. I'm looking at it right now, 85%
on Rotten Tomatoes.
They
did that dirty.
They did
that dirty.
I thought it was at least a 95.
I thought it was hell. Infinity War is, to me, it's the best MCU movie so far. Civil War. Me.
Yeah.
Civil War. That and Civil War, but I mean, to kind of go back to what you were saying about how there's a lot of fan theories floating around, and some of them may come true.
Do you want to touch on some fan theories for the?
I was just gonna say.
Last part of this.
I mean, I've had this conversation a million different times with a million different people. At the end of the day, we can say all the shit we want. We have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Of course, there's heavy speculation about time travel being involved because of the quantum realm.
But
we don't know what they're going to do. But we don't know what they're going to do with that. We don't know what they're going to do with that.
Know.
We really don't.
I know.
And I guess, the craziest theory that I saw, and I've told you this. Actually, I definitely told you this. But it's where essentially the theory was that they use the quantum realm to obviously go back, but their goal is to get the stones before Thanos.
Yeah.
But in that journey, they go to Vormir. They go back to Vormir because that's where the Soul Stone is.
Is this a sacrifice one that you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh god.
And Tony thinks he's gonna have to sacrifice Pepper. But he doesn't have it in him because Tony, he can be very easily emotionally swayed. He can be very easily emotionally swayed.
He's hard on the outside, but he's definitely softy on the inside.
So what ends up happening is Cap says, Tony, you got to throw me off the cliff. And the thought behind that is, yes, you can argue, okay, does Tony really love Cap? Maybe he has an immense amount of respect for him.
Yeah, definitely in a brother way, a brotherly love that the two share.
It would give them a chance. It would give a chance for that relationship to come full circle. He would be like, "Hey, Tony, I literally was like my power kind of stems from the work of your dad a little bit. Like his dad was on that team, right? And I knew your dad when he was young and whatnot. And I come out of the ice and I work with you and whatnot. And I've seen you grow from this selfish dude, whatever." And then he says, "Cap, like I know we've had our disagreements, but like at the end of the day, you are someone who believes in, freedom and, the right to choose, the right to choice and things like that."
Yeah.
And they can have that.
He believes in standing up against the bad guys.
Yeah.
Because he hates bullies.
Yeah. And then having that conversation and really kind of making that relationship come full circle. And then I don't know if they've ever hugged it out, but one time where they hug it out and then he says, "Don't worry, like, don't feel bad about this, Tony." Yeah. And then he says, like, we're doing this for the greater good.
That's true.
And then tosses him off. And the reason I am so inclined to believe that Cap is going to be the one that makes the sacrifice is because when they're talking, he's the one who proposes this whole idea of we don't trade lives in Infinity War. And when Wanda and Vision are having that debate in the Avengers compound, the camera in Infinity War, it pans to Cap and he looks very like kind of distressed and distraught. Right? And so I really think that might have been foreshadowing for a sacrifice that Cap's going to make.
I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I think that would be a crazy theory. I think that'd be a great send-off.
That theory's a little bit out there, but it is fucking nuts.
It would be a great send-off for Captain America. I mean, like, just the emotional weight. The emotional weight that would come behind... Killed at the hands of Stark.
Killed at the hands of Stark.
The emotional weight that would come behind that, would just be... That'd be epic, I mean, there's probably gonna be people out there who want to see Cap go in a more actionable way. But that is still a powerful way to go.
If he's going to die, if someone's going to kill him, I'd honestly rather see Tony kill him than Thanos kill him.
That's true.
I don't want to see Thanos kill him.
Yeah.
I almost cried in Infinity War when Thanos had the glove.
Yeah, when he gave him that punch.
Not the glove. When he put the gauntlet down and then he holds the gauntlet with both hands.
Yeah.
And then he gave him the punch. Yeah, no.
But, kind of going back on that theory, though, I think that'd be a crazy way for him to go. But I mean, kind of to give that theory a little bit more credibility. Now, I'm not saying that like I'm a full subscriber to that theory.
I wouldn't say I fully subscribe to it, but could I see it happening?
I could see it happening.
Bro, the Russos are directing it. This shit's possible. They can do whatever the fuck they want.
I mean, you also have to think that like Cap's lived, relatively speaking, he's lived a long life. Even for a superhuman soldier.
A lot of it he was
around. A lot of it in ice, that's true. But,
but
I think you bring up a great point with the scene in Infinity War where they're talking about trading lives.
Yeah.
Because it's a scene that's, the dialogue is focused on Vision and Scarlet Witch. But the camera's focused on Cap. And then another common theme that we've seen throughout these trailers is that it seems like Cap is the one dealing with the emotional distress of the snap. Of course, this is still speculation from the trailers, but it looks like he's doing some counseling or some kind of therapy for people dealing with, how do I move on with my life, given that half the living population in the universe is gone.
Yeah.
And so that's a heavy weight for him to bear on his shoulders.
Absolutely.
And, if anyone's going to make the sacrifice, though,
it's going to be him.
Given the characters and given their,
and the thing is,
personalities, it's going to be him.
Cap can go out in an epic fashion, right? Like, you get the epic send-off. Luke Skywalker's had it. Rocky Balboa's had it, just to name a couple of people. But, like, Tony you can keep around. Yeah. Tony can be a mentor. He has the money.
We've seen him in that father figure role to Peter Parker, and it works for him.
He can mentor people. He can dopify their tech. Like, he can do all that. If Cap is, let's say, sticks around, if he's retires, but he's still around. Like, what's he do? He motivates people? Sure. Like, okay. Like, I can get behind that, but it seems like Tony has more he could do if he takes a little more of a backseat. A little more
tangible resources.
He can take a little bit more of a backseat. Whereas Cap, it's hard to see Cap really taking a backseat.
Yeah. I'd agree.
Just kind of, I guess, final thoughts. I'm gonna actually, like, kind of before I go into the theater, I'm gonna talk with, like, my brother and, like, a couple friends and, like, list out 10 predictions and just see. I did it last year. I actually got 7 of the 10, and I was still hella surprised by Infinity War. But I'm gonna say that Hawkeye and Ant-Man are major X factors. I think Hawkeye and Ant-Man are gonna be major. I think Thor's gonna have a lot of badass moments, but also be emotionally. He's taking a little more of a backseat.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the read on Banner is, honestly. Professor Hulk, maybe.
That'd be great to see.
And I also
you gotta think they're gonna put Hulk in this one, though. They can't end this era of movies without at least another Hulk scene.
Hot take. I mean, that's true. Hot take, though. I kind of like just having Ruffalo.
I mean, I agree.
I actually kind of prefer having Ruffalo rather than Hulk, but that's just me.
But you got to think they got to put some Hulk smashing into this film.
I think this is not a major question because I don't think he would have a major role anyway. But do you think M'Baku's in this movie? I want to see my dude Winston Duke.
I mean,
I have no idea. He's not on any posters.
That's true.
He didn't get snapped. I don't know. I would love to.
Who knows?
I like that character.
Hot take: M'Baku saves the day, pushes Thanos off of Vormir Cliff.
No, the real twist would be M'Baku's first piece of meat that he consumes is Thanos.
How wild would that be?
So I guess another kind of closing thought is I really think Ant-Man and Hawkeye are going to be like major. Like, when I say major, I'm talking like
instrumental.
I'm thinking. I guess to put an analogy, I think Ant-Man could be what Ant-Man and Hawkeye could kind of be like what Thor, maybe not in terms of the power, but Thor and Doctor Strange / Gamora were in Infinity War.
I'd agree.
Yeah,
I could see that.
I can honestly see Nebula being the new Gamora in that she's the one that has the actual personal connection to Thanos.
Yeah.
And then there's Rocket, who I think I've been preaching this. He's the last Guardian.
He is the last Guardian. That's a great nickname.
He's the last Guardian. All in all, I think the one I have the hardest read on is like how big our Widow and Hulk / Banner are going to be.
Yeah.
But I'm honestly so excited, and I can't say this enough. I'm so incredibly excited to see what they do with Hawkeye. I literally have not seen this man since he was in a floating raft jail, Supermax jail. So yeah,
that's so true. It's been a while
Civil
since
War.
we've seen him on screen.
Since Civil War. Let's be real. His family probably.
His family's definitely out of there.
Your snap is so much better than mine. But any kind of final thoughts?
I mean, aside from the fact that I am extremely excited to be seeing this movie in 25 hours, gosh, it's gonna be an emotional film, and
I think we're in for an emotional ride.
Yeah.
I don't even mind it being slow. I want those character moments.
For sure.
Here's the thing. Let's knock on. Where you got wood?
Yeah, right there on the door.
Okay. Knock on wood that Knock on
he
wood.
Just knocked on some wood, guys.
Knocking on wood that like stuff doesn't get spoiled to us. Like if we don't know the ending, like I want to cherish every last dialogue.
Oh, for sure.
Like as in like this could be the last time I see Steve and Natasha talking. This could be the last time I see. Honestly, if my theory holds true that Cap's gonna go, in Infinity War we probably saw the last time Steve and Bucky are together.
Wow.
So like the point being, I'm fine with slow burner dialogue.
Yeah.
As long as I feel like it's meaningful.
Yeah. Which I think it will be.
And like I said, it's like we're in for this ride, and a lot of us anticipate this is the end of a lot of the cool stuff in that ride.
Exactly.
So like we want to cherish it.
You got to take
it
in.
That's why I'm fine with. I've heard that maybe the first act or so can be a little bit of a slow burn, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And then
I've heard that too, but I mean a lot of them have said that it's slow, but it's necessary to get those moments and to get those character arcs to a completion before all the action kicks in. Because obviously once the ass kicking and all the fighting and the punches get thrown, it's hard to get that dialogue.
And on that note, I guess it would make sense for them to have less Captain Marvel.
Yeah, because she's a hard hitter.
She's
a new character.
And B, she just had her solo film, and we're gonna see a lot of her.
Exactly.
Assuming they continue making movies.
Exactly.
So, needless to say, like everything I've heard is what I've want to hear, and luckily I've heard no spoilers.
Exactly.
So let's hopefully it stays that way. You're gonna see it in 24 hours, or 25. Don't spoil it, obviously, but I definitely want to
trust me.
Just give me like a thumbs up,
yeah,
thumbs down, that kind of thing.
Oh, it's not gonna be.
It's not gonna be a thumbs down. I know
definitely
that.
not gonna be a thumbs down.
You can give me like a thumbs up or like a fire emoji or like a blessing.
You don't want a. Can I tell the listeners what I did here in Infinity War?
Yeah.
I gave him. I saw it before Matt. Matt's a patient guy. For all you people listening out there, did
you not watch the post-credit scene for Spider-Man: Homecoming?
I did.
Cap, what did Cap preach?
Patience. That's so true. That is very true. And Matt really embodies that. But I did see Infinity War before him as well when it came out, and I remember seeing that movie, and I messaged him 3 letters, FPQ.
And I thought I was like, what? And you're like, dude, it's a spoiler. I don't want to tell you. And I was like, what? First person question? Turns out it was fuck Peter Quill. Yeah.
So I might give you one of those decrypted spoilers.
But I don't want to think.
That are
I don't want to think.
That's true.
Like if I see a TS in there, I'm gonna start sweating.
TS.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So, yeah. But I won't hold you up any longer. I want to thank you for joining.
No, thank you for having me. This was a blast.
On this podcast. Yeah, and thank you to the listeners for listening. Please, as always, subscribe either on YouTube or the Apple podcast app. Leave a 5-star review. Show us some love, and hopefully, you guys, by the time you hear this, hopefully you guys have seen Endgame and are able to digest whatever flood of emotions it's gonna deliver.
Yeah. And feel free to reach out to us too. We love talking to listeners and we love talking to fans about just theories, reactions.
Yeah. Just don't spoil it before Saturday night because that's when I'm seeing it. Yeah. So thanks for listening.
For having me.
Yeah, to end it on a kind of a Marvel like note, like may the All Fathers bless our and give us like a kick-ass viewing experience.
Awesome, guys.